Welcome to episode 87 of The Place of Sound. I'm your host, Natalie Hall. The Place of Sound is a show that explores the theme of space or social geography using sound and listening. This is done through a variety of audio media production formats, so you can expect to do a few different types of listening in a single show. Episodes consist of what we refer to as audio portraits, or oral history-style interviews that explore topics of home, soundscape compositions, which use everyday sounds to communicate the personal and social significance of a given place, and we typically end the episode with a short documentary-style piece that explores the place-based identity of the producer. The aim with these projects is to allow the producer to think about the places that made them who they are today. These are the types of projects you can expect to hear on The Place of Sound, and all of them are produced by students here at Carleton University. They're what gets produced in Comms 4501 Digital Media Production, a fourth-year workshop course in the Communications and Media Studies program. Welcome back, everyone, to The Place of Sound. Today's episode is the second in our two-part housing series. If you haven't listened to the last episode, you should really check it out. I sat down with Ben Emmond, one of the Bank Block Tenants, to talk about his eviction and how they organized to fight it. It gives a bit of context to this episode, but also we play an original song of Ben's in the last episode, and it's really beautiful and really worth the listen. In this episode, I spoke with my very good friend and organizer at Bank Block Tenants, Andrew Braithwaite. We talked about how to get involved in BBT, the importance of talking to your neighbors, and how the local music scene got involved in the organizing efforts. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but this is one of my last episodes as the host and producer of The Place of Sound. After this episode, you'll hear my voice on one more, and then my time on the show will be done. I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity, and I've had so much fun. I've been really grateful to have an audience and some sort of platform to explore topics like housing in Canada, music in Ottawa, themes of home and architecture and development. And as one of my last episodes, I'm really happy I got to sit down with such a good friend of mine and talk about such an important cause and also have a little giggle. I brought Andrew into the CKCU studio and it was a lot of fun. We chatted for around an hour and it seems like a great send-off. And I won't go on for too much longer because we have an interview to get to. But thank you so much for listening and enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Natalie, and I am joined by my very good friend.
Hello, I'm Andrew Braithwaite. I'm super happy to be here. First time on CKCU.
Woo!
Woo!
Maybe the last.
Definitely the last.
We started recording 12 minutes ago, and so far we have...
Subscribe to our Patreon to hear it.
We have 0 usable seconds. So we're starting over. We're starting from square one, but everything's always better the second time.
Yeah.
Andrew's here with us because, well, for many reasons. He is my very good friend. He really, really wanted to be on the radio.
Desperately.
And he is very involved in BBT. And he actually introduced me and a lot of our friends and a lot of, I think, students and young people in general to the organization. Do you remember, like, when you found out about BBT and like how you got involved?
I remember the exact day.
Okay.
Shout out Golden Baguette.
Okay.
Best breakfast sandwiches in Ottawa. $4.75 in
Nice.
this economy.
Nice. That's good.
They said the price of eggs don't affect them. Yeah, I was just biking down Bank, and I was getting a breakfast sandwich, and I saw the purple tent. I think I should preface this with saying that, like, for a long time as a student who was ideologically driven and positioned in Marxist analysis, I was like super desperate to get involved because I felt very apathetic not doing something within my community. And I feel like a lot of young people and people in general feel that way.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was just biking down Bank, and I went up to the tent, and I talked to Eric. He's one of the Bank Block Tenants, and he's been doing amazing work trying to keep his home. And I talked to Ethan also, who was a fellow organizer. He's not a tenant at Bank Block, but he was an organizer helping. And at the time, he and others were doing like the People's Assembly on Housing, which was basically just like a community get together, and they were discussing what was the most important things in the community at the time. And what came out of that was that everyone was concerned about housing.
Yeah.
And tenant rights. And that's how support for the Bank Block Tenants sort of like organically came out of that.
I feel like there's just been a swarm of support for BBT from the community.
Yeah.
Like specifically, this mass eviction has garnered a lot of kind of community support and attention. And like, why do you think that is?
I think it was timing. I mean, there was a lot of community support for Osgood Chambers, and that was a pretty big deal, especially because of like the sort of horrific things that happened there and the horrific living conditions that the tenants had to experience. I think people just like gravitated towards it based off of like, I mean, it wasn't just like spontaneous. It happened because the tenants were extremely organized in putting pressure on smart living properties and publicizing the issue. And also, like, from the support network we built, the supporting tenants, people not in the building, the Neighborhood Organizing Center, which is an organization that was kind of born out of the organizing we did with BBT, we did really effective organizing work. It was organic in a lot of ways, but, like, you know, this was a directed campaign, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some ways, it has failed because the eviction is happening.
Yeah, I wouldn't say failed.
Well, I was going to follow up by, and in other ways, it's really succeeded in birthing a bunch of these other organizations
for sure
that are like, that will go past this eviction and help other community members and tenants who need to be organized the second they get that notice.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the idea is that you should be organized far before you even get an eviction notice.
Yeah.
It's really hard to build up the sort of communication between your neighbors. Most people don't know their neighbors. And like that's always our first line when we're like door knocking or talking to people is like, you know, the easiest thing to do to start organizing, because it's really foreign to people, like what is organizing, is just talk to your neighbors, talk about the problems you have with each other, because you have the same landlord. And I wouldn't say it's a failure, because every sort of bureaucratic process that goes into evicting tenants is built in favor of the landlords and the developers.
Yeah.
So any sort of like hindering to that eviction process is a success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They lose a lot of money if their project doesn't start immediately. And I think that's a huge win. The development model is on short-term profits.
Yeah.
And like that is just capitalism. No one is concerned about like the long-term implications of how you like extract profit.
Yeah.
They want their shareholders and their investors to get like a 10% return as fast as possible, and then don't face the consequences of how they accumulate capital. Often it's just sort of this like baseless sort of consequence. Like, oh, they get evicted, but like, I'm just, I'm doing developments, man. That's just how the world works. Got to make money.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the most amazing things I've seen while organizing is that when these people are confronted with the consequences of their actions, they are shaking in their boots.
Yeah. Aside from their actions after they like own a property, develop a property, whatever, the fact of the matter is they have evicted the tenants of 227 Bank Street and 178 Nepean Street. And
in the process of,
in the process of.
Like they just had their LTB hearing.
Yeah.
Which is an eviction factory, by the way. It's not a fair place for tenants to go and share their grievances.
Yeah, that's also another thing is the LTB disallowed BBT's key witnesses because they weren't tenants.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they had information into the many reasons why this was unjust.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think like the two major takeaways about organizing is that unfortunately you can't rely on like so-called legitimate political processes. The tenants took their grievances, they created a fantastic plan and like will say statements to like the housing committee in Ottawa. And they basically were like, we can't do anything about it, Even when it went to city council, because it went to the planning committee initially, and then it was like a split vote or whatever, and then it went to like the whole council. And they were like, basically, we aren't here to make political decisions.
Yeah.
They were like, we're just here to approve, zoning.
Yeah.
And they worded it in a way that's like, oh, we can't do anything. But it's like, it's your whole job to be political people. Like, you're our representatives.
Yeah.
Because you can. Like, there is instances where so-called NIMBYism happened and, like, municipal representatives were like, no, you can't develop here.
Yeah.
But guess where that happened? It's in Canada and in the suburbs where wealthier people have a little more say because they don't want their green space all urbanized and densified, which, like, whatever. But the idea that they can't be political is just like they're just covering. Yeah.
Well, it's inherently political.
It is.
Just the relationship between landlords and tenants is inherently political, even if you have a quote unquote good one.
Yeah. Or if it's your uncle or your aunt or your mom and dad.
It rests on the fact that at any time, because they own this building, because they like have to make good on their investment in some way, you can be put out.
Yeah, you like are in a constant state of precarity. Yeah. There is no like security and when it comes to housing. I mean, for like mostly anything.
Yeah.
But like especially when it comes to housing, there's very little security for people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign of a sick society if you can't house the people that are in it.
And
it doesn't make any sense. Well,
when you hear about the housing crisis, this is part of it.
For sure.
This is part of it, and it's if you're living probably anywhere you live, especially if you're living in a city, it's happening right under your nose.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
And once affordable, rent-controlled, subsidized apartments are being turned into smaller, more apartments, smaller.
They're turning into Airbnbs.
Yeah,
like that's
worse
literally
quality.
What they're turning them into Airbnbs. Especially if you live in Montreal, watch out.
Yeah.
Toronto, ruined. It's happening all over the place.
Vancouver is it's unlivable.
Yeah, these places are being destroyed, and I think the language of housing crisis is so ridiculous because it's people don't give the media enough credit for the role that they play in dressing it, and that's not all media, but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
But
it's the housing crisis is we're experiencing a housing crisis. What do you mean?
That's
what's the housing crisis?
That's what the politicians call it because they don't want to.
They don't want to admit that they're complicit in it.
Yeah, and they don't want to use coded language that shows any sense of the control that we have to not have a housing crisis.
Well, and it's like, oh, the crisis is that there's just a bunch of developers that want to make a lot more money, and so they all collude to jack the market prices. So we have this like extremely speculative market for our housing. It's a human right.
Yeah.
In the UN, and I have my issues with the UN, but it's considered a human right. In Canada and so many places, it's a speculative market. It's a speculative market. That means like people are just using it to invest their money. No one's living in these condos, these like, oh, wow, so much densification, like all this like urbanization, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, but how are you doing it? You're doing it through like this lens of like luxury condos. If we just build more people be able to no, you're just gonna have more investors parking their money into it. Sending the prices through the roof. And it's like, oh, it's because we have a housing system that's operating off of speculative investments.
And that's what makes it commonplace for rent to be so high. It's just, it all feeds into one another. And when I visited to 27 Bank and I spoke with Ben, people are envious and not compassionate to him at all because his rent is $750.
That's like, I'm sorry, $750 like should be expensive.
Yeah, and if you're getting jealous about that, we can work to make rent not exist.
Well, rent,
but like we can work to support these places that and show they have value.
Yeah,
and not accept.
No, for sure. I mean, I don't know anyone has resentment towards that, but like that's definitely a thing for sure. You're directing your anger and frustration that should be at a system of exploitation towards someone who can't afford to live anywhere else. Yeah. Like, it's insane. That's such a backwards logic, especially because like if you talk to the tenants in Bank Block, some of these people have lived here for like 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not.
Imagine having a mortgage for 40 years, or like you pay off your mortgage and you've had this house for 40 years, and someone's like, oh, I'm going to take this and build some. It's like, what? What do I do? I don't know anything else. And I'm also like, some of them are over 70 years old. It's like you're asking these people to uproot their whole lives, and they have to rely on an extremely bottlenecked backlog system of municipal support. And they're just not going to find another place that's that affordable. It doesn't exist. It's going to be market rate, which is like over $1,500. Who can afford to do that?
Yeah.
If you were like disabled or you're like living off your pension, like it's just not we're killing people basically.
Yeah. I want to ask you.
Yeah, should we get to our like main topic?
Okay, first, I want to ask, after being involved, what you think the most effective form of organizing is, or like engaging the community.
You know, it's funny. I guess like, well, at our recent launch meeting for Tenants of Sandy Hill, I was like asking a couple of people, and their like response of like how they heard about Tosh was the posters we were putting up. But like getting involved in organizing, especially if you are a tenant, and I don't know if we were rolling at this point, but talking to your neighbors, like actually, and like understanding that it's so much easier to confront your landlord about, I don't know, late maintenance stuff, or like they're trying to get you to move over to this one payment method that's super weird and you don't trust it. Or, I'm sorry, a lot of stories, your landlord's an actual creep. It's so hard to do that alone. The best way to do that is to talk to your neighbors. Maybe, you know, you don't have to like start right away with the language of like tenant union or tenant organizing or whatever if people are scared of that. Just go and talk to your neighbors and be like, I think we should have like some sort of monthly meetings about stuff in the building and like issues we're having, and just go out and talk to your neighbors. Like, I've been thinking about the whole loss of like third space discourse that was happening. and the sort of alienation everyone feels. I think talking to the people that live in the exact same place as you is the easiest way. But also follow Ottawa Knock on Instagram. Come out to our weekly actions. We do like door knocking. We do postering. We do like fundraising events. We do like socials. We do like educational workshops on like, what is a tenant committee? How can this help you? What does it look like? Like, how do I structure it? How do we have like a structure to like communicate effectively together? Like make a group chat with your neighbors.
Yeah.
It's like simple. In one of the biggest things I've learned in organizing was how benign it is.
Yeah.
It's super benign. It's like,
it's not exciting work.
no, it's basically socializing with a purpose.
Yeah.
With a direct purpose. I
It's
shouldn't
like
say it's just social, but like it is. It's very social. Like the whole point of organizing is to be talking to one another.
It's like the less evil version of networking.
Yeah, oh my God, it's like yes, it is the less evil version of networking. It's the like good version of networking. Yeah, no, I think for so many young people like myself, there is just this sort of like yearning for something that means something. You know, I feel like I have these conversations with people all the time. You know, get involved in your community in a meaningful way. Organize. Like, it's actually so important, and it works. Historically, it works. There's, like, proof that organizing is effective.
Also, Ottawa Knock, and, like, if you're listening to this, we're making it pretty easy for you to find out how. If you're like lost at where to start, just exactly as Andrew said, this is an organization you can get involved in just by showing up someplace. And also, sometimes they do shows.
We do shows.
And I wanna pivot to that. The shows, the two fundraising shows. Well, that was kind of your contribution, like your.
The idea wasn't solely mine. Like, through, like, being introduced to, like, music people and just, like, those being my friends, it was, like, and people that cared about Ottawa. And, I think, like, the indie scene and the music scene in Ottawa is, like, super special because a lot of people just are friends and, like, take care of each other in a way that I had never seen before. And it was just kind of natural for those two things to be brought together.
Yeah.
I knew that my friends would be like, oh yeah, of course we would, you know, put on a show and not take any of the ticket revenue.
Yeah.
And it would be awesome, and we'd have a great time and drink a little, and you know, like, for a great cause. Yeah, it was definitely just like an offer, and then I went to Cole and I was like, do you think we could do this?
Yeah.
And Cole was like, yeah, totally, we could absolutely do this. And the first show was a huge success, and it's such a success that the second one was also a success.
That was horrible. But yes, both.
I mean, like, no, it was like, I remember talking to Cole that like fundraising shows are hard sometimes because if it's like for the same thing, you might not get as many people the second time.
Yeah.
But I think I'm pretty sure we made more money the second time.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And it was on like a Wednesday.
It was on a Wednesday. And I mean, I think the crossover of arts and organizing and like very direct political action, which Bank Block and Neighborhood Organizing Center and the Tenants of Sandy Hill do, is like, it's extremely natural. Art at a local level is very community oriented and relies on like the people you know to come and support. Yeah. And I think the same premise is true to tenant organizing, is that it's like, they're your neighbors. I am relying on the people I know to come and support me. And I think like there's a lot of crossover just in the fact that most of the people in the room watching the music are affected by the way that the housing system works. And most people in Canada are tenants. So it was just natural to bring these two things together for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you can expect. if you get involved.
Oh, for sure. We do fun stuff, and maybe there's stuff coming in the future to look out for.
Maybe by the time this episode is out,
hopefully
there will be more stuff to announce.
There definitely will be stuff. Like, this is just the beginning. I mean, Bank Block, God bless them. The work that those tenants have done has been amazing, but I think they know themselves that this was just the beginning of like tenant organizing in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And then also in the country. I feel like there's a serious movement happening because people are looking around them and being like, what is happening? This sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all to say that along with some music and some community and some laughs and some beer, BBT and Knock and Tosh have slipped in some organizing so that you're prepared.
For sure.
As a tenant.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, organizing doesn't work without a sense of community, in my opinion. We'll have to feel like they, like, belong.
Yeah.
For sure. And have a sense of empathy for each other.
Yeah.
And you build that through community.
And I think that's a great place to leave it.
Oh, I want to talk so much more.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, I want to say thank you to Andrew for giving me his time and for speaking so candidly and passionately, and for being the one to introduce me to Bank Block Tenants. If you want to know more about BBT, you can go to www.bankblocktenants.ca or find them on Instagram at Bank Block Tenants. You can also find the Ottawa Neighborhood Organizing Center at Ottawa Knock on Instagram, or the Tenants of Sandy Hill on Instagram at tenants_of_Sandy_Hill. They will all be linked in the description of this episode. And before I sign off, a couple of quick notes. A reminder that what we've listened to here on this show is only a fraction of the work produced in association with this project. If you're interested in checking out more, have a look at theplaceofsound.ca, where you're not only able to hear this audio work, but also see some of the original photos and writing that students produced to go along with the audio. There's also a featured work section on the site's blog where you can access some notable individual projects. And in the classes section, you can have a look at the portfolio website designed by students themselves, which hosts every project produced in this course. And lastly, under the Listen link, you're able to access the show's archive and listen back to any episode of the show you'd like to hear. But in the meantime, keep your ear out for upcoming episodes of the show, which air on CKCU Radio every other Monday at 6:30 p.m. and are available wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning into The Place of Sound, and happy listening.